Johnston, Michael, it's lovely to have you on again. Welcome to the show.
Oh, great to be here.
Oh, thank you very much. No, you are there. Now, you're a senior fellow at the New Zealand Initiative. You lead the workstream on education. You held academic positions at Victoria University, poor bugger, for 10 years. From 2020 until 2022, you were the Associate Dean Academic at the university's Faculty of Education. And prior to that, you were the Senior Statistician at the New Zealand Qualifications Authority, and you were a lecturer in psychology at the University of Melbourne and a research fellow at La Trobe. You hold a PhD in cognitive psychology from the University of Melbourne. And all that is very good. You end up at the New Zealand Initiative, and now you are on the Ministerial Working Group. How are you finding that, first of all?
Well, it's been great. You know, the Ministerial Advisory Group is now actually wound up. We submitted our report to the Minister, which has now been made public, and most of the recommendations have been adopted, and the curriculum is now being produced.
And
all of that work has gone very well.
Okay, and so as I was saying in my introduction, it was really important for a minister to get independent advice from the ministry, who, after all, aren't going to change their advice from the advice they've given over the last 10 years. Do you think that the minister is going to enact, or do you think she understands the problem she has with the ministry?
I think that she's onto the process of getting the curriculum written and is taking an active interest in the way in which the ministry's doing that, and I've got every reason to believe that she'll succeed.
I'll ask that question again, or is it too hard for you to answer? And I don't mean that nastily, but you know what I mean. Would it be impolitic of you to answer? Do you think that coming to you was because she needed an alternate voice from the Ministry of Education?
I think she definitely wanted to have some independent experts with knowledge of the science of learning and structured literacy and the other things that will feature in the new curriculum. She definitely wanted that expertise, yes.
Yeah, and because she wasn't going to be getting that advice from her own ministry. Now, on that particular working party, you had a number of people, I'm sorry, whose names I don't know most of them. One of them was Professor Elizabeth Rata from the Faculty of Education at the University of Auckland. We've had her on the show. But most of the others I'm not aware of. How many of them were school principals or had that sort of...
There were three members who were current or past principals.
Right. So they'd have a day-to-day awareness of what the curriculum is happening in their schools. All right. Now, one of the things that I've seen you just write about, and the reason why you're on the show today, is because you believe that one of the problems, and this is not to do with the curriculum, is that we're not getting the right people necessarily with the right skills into the teaching profession. Have I got that right?
Well, it's not so much the right people as the way in which they're being trained. So for some 20 years, the universities have had a near monopoly on the education of primary and secondary teachers prior to them entering the profession. Now that follows the amalgamation of the teachers' colleges into the universities. And there are two sort of broad arguments that have been made in favour of the universities running teacher education. One is that it's important for teachers to be up with kind of cutting-edge research in education, and they'll get that through being trained by education academics. The other is that it's good if teacher education is in universities so that there can be contact between teacher education and all the other disciplines that are taught and researched within universities. Now, I don't think that either of those arguments have played out. I don't think that, first of all, on the research, the active researcher front, I don't think, first of all, it's necessary for active researchers to be themselves training teachers, for teachers to have a research-based training.
Yeah.
As long as the people who are training them are themselves familiar with what the research says, then that should certainly be part of their training and can be. And I might add that most of the educational research done in New Zealand universities, not all, but most, is very much qualitative and small scale. So it's not really suitable for generalising to principles of teaching across the board. It focuses on often teachers' views of particular issues in classrooms, which is interesting, but again, it's not generalisable. What you need if you want research to be generalisable is large-scale quantitative studies that look in a systematic way at the way various teaching methods work or various teaching approaches, what their success is. There isn't just much of that out of our education faculties. A little bit, but not nearly enough to justify them having a monopoly on teacher education. In terms of the contact with the other disciplines of the university, that just hasn't really happened. We see, for example, primary school teachers, there's been a fair bit of research into the fact that they're not well enough prepared to teach mathematics. Certainly, to the best of my knowledge, mathematics schools and universities have had very little influence on the way primary school teachers are prepared to be teaching mathematics. That's an example.
Yeah, I'm interested in that and I'm sort of interested in how you ended up where you are, because you were the Associate Dean Academic in the Faculty of Education at Victoria University of Wellington. So yes. you sort of presided over teacher training, did you, or you were involved?
Well, no, I didn't. I was when I was the Associate Dean. I was responsible for all of the school's programs that weren't teacher education. There was another Associate Dean who was Associate Dean for teacher education. So I was more on the education studies side, the Masters of Education and degrees like that, not teacher education ones. And what I noticed when I was in that faculty for 10 years was how little involvement the educational psychologists had with teacher education, for one thing. I had very little myself. I had a little bit of involvement on assessment for a couple of years, but that was basically it. And so I actually formed the view that there wasn't enough input from the psychology side, a huge amount from the sociology side, and I think that's a hallmark of most of our teacher education in universities, that it's very sociological. That's not to say that sociology has nothing to say about teacher education. It certainly does, but I think it's very much out of balance, and there's not nearly enough on how individual children learn, how the human brain learns, and the principles of teaching that arise from that.
Yeah, no, and can I say that was endorsed? I had 2 weeks ago, the head of the Auckland Primary School Principals Association on, making exactly that point. He said, I'm getting graduates coming out who know an awful lot about sociology, but not an awful lot about teaching. I guess that would be your experience too.
Well, that's what I would suspect is the case, yes, from my involvement in an education faculty, and certainly there's research that backs that up in terms of teachers' preparedness, and teachers that are not themselves feeling prepared. There's been reports, I think, from Aero on that recently.
They have.
And principals are not seeing them as prepared either. And this is not teachers' fault. I don't want to be seen to be dumping on teachers here. I think they've been sold short in their training, and we need to do something about it.